As Moo Jin's daughter tries to move out of the banquet, the guard directs her that if she goes any deeper, there is an elevator that only authorized personnel are allowed to use. After hearing this, she continued moving toward the elevator, all while thinking that she must be completely out of her mind for coming here in the first place. She questioned why she even bothered, especially when the memory of Taeha ignoring her surfaced again. The more she recalled it, the more irritation crept in, and the feeling of being brushed aside returned sharply. Her mood darkened as she thought about the face she had seen earlier, a face so unpleasant and irritating that it remained etched into her mind no matter how much she tried to forget it. As she stood there waiting, she began wondering why the elevator was taking so long to arrive. She recalled hearing that no one really used it, yet it felt unbearably slow. Just as impatience settled in, the elevator doors finally slid open. What appeared before her was Jae, locked in an intimate kiss with a woman inside the elevator. Their closeness was unmistakable, and both Jae and the woman glanced toward Moo Jin's daughter, only to be met with a look of clear disgust on her face. After glancing at the woman's face, Moo Jin's daughter spoke in an apologetic tone, stating that if Jae had been trying to latch onto some wealthy lady, then his attempt had failed miserably. She remarked that the woman was merely the mistress of the chairman of ZQ Corporation, and there was nothing meaningful to gain from associating with her. The woman immediately became annoyed, questioning what kind of nonsense Moo Jin's daughter was talking about. In response, Moo Jin's daughter questioned her calmly, asking whether she should go ahead and inform the chairman about what she had just witnessed. Upon hearing this, the woman's expression shifted. She moved out of the elevator in a panic and fled from the scene without looking back, leaving Jae standing there, visibly cornered. Moo Jin's daughter then stepped into the elevator, and a heavy silence filled the confined space between them. After a moment, Jae spoke, stating that he had only heard that the staff were all stationed outside. Moo Jin's daughter replied that if only staff members were present, he would truly believe it justified doing something so low class. Jae bit his tongue as he affirmed her words sarcastically, pressing the button and stating that he would take his low-class self and leave. However, Moo Jin's daughter stopped his finger before he could complete the action and close the elevator doors instead. She questioned what he thought he was doing, stating that she was heading down and that he was supposed to escort her. She reminded him that he was a guard, which left Jae completely taken aback. Outside the elevator, Jae questioned why she had followed him all the way there. He apologized, stating that if she disliked cigarette smoke, she might want to step back a little. However, he then noticed Moo Jin's daughter lighting her own cigarette, which made him realize that she was a smoker herself. Seeing this, Jae also lit a cigarette, and the two stood there in silence for a brief moment. After a short pause, Jae questioned how she had known earlier. Moo Jin's daughter questioned what he meant by that, to which Jae replied that she had clearly seen through his attempt to approach the rich woman. Moo Jin's daughter stated that it was impossible not to know, remarking that he looked like someone who would even try to seduce her mother. Jae thought to himself that first there had been a crazy young master, and now there was a crazy young lady as well, making him feel as though he was slowly losing his sanity. The scene then shifted toward Taeha, who had just received a hard slap across his face. He slowly glanced back at his mother. Mrs. Beck questioned who had ever said she was his mother as she glared at him coldly. She raised her hand again, attempting to slap him once more, but Taeha stopped her wrist, remarking that she had grown much weaker. He mentioned that when he had been young, she had beaten him far more ruthlessly than this. As he spoke, he wondered whether time had worn her down, or whether it was because he resembled someone too much, making it uncomfortable for her to strike him with the same force as before. Gradually, Mrs. Bak erupted in laughter. She referred to Taeha as a crazy bastard, and questioned whether he actually liked resembling Taeju. She questioned what exactly it was that he liked about such a resemblance, mentioning someone who had been cruel even to those closest to him. She stated that he already knew his father carried a fate that repelled women. Leaning closer, she whispered into Taeha's ear, telling him that he was exactly the same, and that anything remaining by his side would inevitably wither and die. She then stepped away, questioning what he could possibly do about it, and telling him to simply accept it as fate. She added that perhaps it did not even matter to him, since he was just as heartless and worthless a piece of trash as his father. Mrs. Bak moved away while feeling a strange sensation lingering in her hand, recalling a distant memory involving Taeju looking just like Taeha. In the present, she shivered slightly as she continued to move away. Afterwards, as Mrs. Bak conversed with another woman, who mentioned that back then, 3 cello strings had snapped at once. Mrs. Bak commented that the girl was quite interesting. She then called out to Taeha, asking why he would not come over for a moment. She introduced him, stating that her son still had many shortcomings, and that there were many aspects in which he could learn more. She asked the woman what she thought and suggested that the two of them try to get along. The woman glanced toward Taeha and replied that she would like to. She introduced herself as Onion So and stated that they should get along well. Mrs. Bak remarked that the two of them suited each other very well, which earned a glance from Taeha. She then reminded her son to get along properly. The scene shifted back to Jae, who had grown visibly worn out after catering to a young lady who continuously bombarded him with questions. She questioned who he worked under, and Jae asked what she intended to do with such information. Yoo Jin's daughter replied that she planned to report him for neglecting his duties, which only served to irritate him further. He sarcastically remarked how grateful he felt, stating that he could almost cry from appreciation. Jae then thought to himself that he had already wasted too much time and should probably leave. Just then, another guard called out to him. The guard questioned what he was doing there. Jae replied that he was simply standing by. The senior guard then ordered him to head upstairs, stating that the young master was looking for him. Jae questioned what had happened this time and whether something had already gone wrong. He cursed quietly as he moved off to search, only to fail to locate him. As he continued walking, Jae questioned why the place was so vast and confusing, wondering how many times he had already wandered through the same areas. He complained inwardly that he was not a psychic and had no way of finding someone who summoned him without specifying a location. He considered checking the next hall, but just then, he spotted a familiar figure. He thought that it was impossible not to recognize him, especially since he always appeared the moment Jae thought about him. However, realization struck when he noticed Taeha glaring directly at him. A cold sensation surged into Jae's chest, making his heart sink and making him curse at himself. While Taeha tried to convince himself that what he thought was a premonition. It's just a premonition, and it was merely his imagination about Hae-soo. Taeha continued glaring at Jae while Hae-soo was surrounded by several people who restrained her as she fell down. The glass of wine slipped from Taeha's hand and shattered as he clenched his teeth, grinding them together. He prayed with a furious face, hoping nothing would happen to Hae-soo. As the guard closed the door and loomed like a shadow to prevent Hae-soo from moving forward while she huffed in fear, she struggled even to apologize properly, explaining that she did not work there and pleading to be allowed to leave. The guard stared right back at her as he leaned closer, wearing a disgusting smile, repeating her own words by saying that she did not work there and wanted to go. He then questioned why she had come inside in the first place, as if her presence itself had become something suspicious. Hae-soo pushed against him and banged on the door while calling for help, while the guard questioned whether she had lost her senses. Hae-soo tried again to call for help, but the guard grabbed her and threw her back while the phone in her hand slipped and fell to the ground. Hae-soo questioned herself again and again, wondering why does this happen to her all the time. She had been trying her best the entire time and had done nothing wrong, so she could not understand why everything was happening to her. As the guard dragged her out, she wondered why she could never relax even once, why even a moment of peace felt unreachable. When the guard crushed her phone under his foot, she asked herself why the world hated her so much, and why it felt as if every small hope was always taken away. The scene shifted toward Taeha, who stared directly at Jae. Jae recalled telling Taeha that maybe it was time to stop doing such things personally, since he needed to protect his reputation and too many eyes were watching him. It had been better to let someone else handle dangerous matters, which somehow made it even more dangerous than doing it himself. Jae realized he had taken those words too lightly as Taeha drew the attention of everyone around him. His expression changed as Jae remembered the senior's words about young master looking out for him, and Jae felt as if he had been quietly tricked, not by intent but by carelessness. The scene then shifted toward the bar, where a woman smoked and called out for Hae-soo, questioning whether she planned to work looking like that and asking whether she owned any proper clothes. She tossed a skirt toward her and ordered her to put it on, while Hae-soo stared at it in disbelief, unable to understand how things had reached this point. A memory surfaced where Hae-soo had tried to stop Minchul from fighting. She had begged him to calm down and had pleaded again and again for him to stop. Minchul had glanced at her and questioned what she had said, saying that she was enjoying it as well, twisting her concern into something cruel and unfair. In the present moment, Hae-soo jolted and pleaded again, apologizing and asking for help, thinking there had to be some misunderstanding since she did not work there and needed to go home. The woman suddenly screamed at her, questioning who had said anything about killing her and ordering her to do what she was told without resisting. She screamed that causing trouble would only turn things into hell for everyone involved, and that silence was the easier path, even if it felt unbearable. Another memory returned, where Hae-soo's father had made a scene while beating her mother and demanding to know where the girl had been hidden. He accused her of staying silent and struck Hae-soo as well, saying she should die instead of living like that after giving birth to someone like her. He cursed that they should die together. Hae-soo also remembered Minchul crying on her shoulder and blaming his entire life on her, as if she had shaped every wrong choice he had ever made. Hae-soo realized again that she should never have hoped. Like always, she should have remained afraid and treated kindness with suspicion. She remembered telling Taeha that he should have dated someone his own age instead of getting involved with a divorced woman and getting beaten by her ex. He had laughed, and Hae-soo had wondered why he was laughing and had called him foolish idiot in her thoughts. She noticed the bruises on his face and how he lay on the cold, cramped floor, smiling as if none of it mattered. His eyes seemed to urge her to bloom again and again, to keep trying no matter how difficult it felt, to keep believing even when belief felt dangerous. On the hill, Hae-soo had warned him that being with her would only bring him misery. Taeha had replied that he wanted to be miserable with her if that was the case. Hae-soo had been deeply moved, thinking that there was still something she had never told him, that she cared for him deeply and loved him. That was why she wanted him to be happy, to live only through the troubles someone his age should face, and to suffer only over the things people his age usually suffered over. She wanted him to be happy because she loved him and did not want her pain to become his burden, even if it meant carrying everything alone. In the present, tears filled her eyes and her sobbing grew uncontrollable. It felt better not to call him and not to drag him into her misery. Meanwhile, Taeha ran toward Hae-soo's home and noticed the teddy bear inside, feeling a strange heaviness in his chest. The scene shifted toward the motel, where the ugly owner stood idly, thinking about the lack of customers. She considered it unfortunate and wondered why the rooms had once sold well during her shifts. When the door opened, she greeted the visitor and asked whether a room was needed. Taeha explained that he was searching for Hae-soo and asked whether she had been there that day. The owner realized he was not a guest and replied that Hae-soo was not working and told him to leave. As he turned away, the owner added that Hae-soo no longer worked there and should not be sought again. Taeha questioned how she knew that, and the owner explained that Hae-soo had called and said she had found a better place. The owner complained about how inconvenient sudden resignations were and how people lacked consideration. She spoke about being left without notice, about inconvenience, about hurt feelings, and about how people always chose what benefited them most. She spoke about being understanding while clearly feeling abandoned. She informed that Hae-soo had said that it is easier, more comfortable, and pays more, as she remarks that those who want to leave have to be allowed to go. The owner then adds that she does not want to waste time talking about someone who already quit, and she tells Taeha not to get in the way of business and to leave already. Taeha interrupts her and says that Hae-soo worked here for a long time and did not leave carelessly. He pauses and realizes that this had always been the same spot where Hae-soo stood with her face barely holding up against sleepiness, her cheeks marked by a hard life that never seemed to soften. He remembers how she would stumble back after sleepless nights, how her movements were always tired and careful, and how her eyes carried a quiet weight she never spoke about. He remembers seeing all of it and understanding more than she ever realized. He knew that Hae-soo had always been distrustful and had never given him a real chance to get close. She missed him but never said she did. She felt afraid but never admitted fear. She felt hurt but never spoke about pain. Hae-soo had forgotten how to express her feelings, or perhaps she had never learned how. Hae-soo had always been frightened, always cautious, always prepared for disappointment. Taeha cannot believe that the one thing Hae-soo had finally started to believe in was other people's kindness, just enough to hope for a tomorrow without misfortune. She had started to believe that things could be different, that life could become gentler, and that the future might not always be heavy. She had started to believe, and now she was gone without explanation. Taeha grips the fire extinguisher and lifts it just enough to make the owner flinch. The owner questions what he is doing, but he does not respond. Ignoring her words, he swings it and shatters the mirror into pieces. The sound of breaking glass fills the room, and the scattered shards make the owner scream. She collapses and grovels, trembling in fear, her body shaking uncontrollably. Taeha stands before her, his breathing heavy, his gaze fixed on her without wavering. As his nerves are about to pop, he leans to stare directly at her soul, making her shrink back further. He demands an answer, as he questions where the hell Hae-soo is.